Best of live marketing Q&A from the Law Firm Growth Summit 2019, Day 1 with Mark Homer, Gordon Firemark, Charles Krugel, and Neil Tyra. Are you ready to make your law firm a profit-generating machine that will free up your time and skyrocket your impact? With more than 2 decades of business growth experience and having proven that you can be successful while prioritizing your family and your impact, introducing the Profit with Law podcast. I am your host, the creator of the Firm Differentiator 10X Effect, Moshe Amsel. Well, hello and welcome to another episode of the Profit with Law podcast. I'm your host, Moshe Amsel, and today we're going to be replaying one of it's actually our most downloaded episode on the podcast. And we ran this episode after our Law Firm Growth Summit at the end of 2019. And this was a recap of Day 1's live Q&A. So we did a 2-hour long live Q&A each night of the event. Now, this recording is not 2 hours long. We cut out a lot of the sponsor stuff and the free giveaways we were doing and just boiled it down to the questions and answers. But it was great conversations. And I recently got some feedback from somebody who had been on these live Q&As that had their business this year severely impacted, not in a bad way, in an amazing way. By attending those Q&As, they got some feedback that really changed the trajectory of their business for the better, and were able to navigate through COVID and really significantly grow their business this year. So a lot of value in these live Q&As. Now, the really exciting thing that I'm about to announce, I've been alluding to this on the podcast for the last few weeks, is that as of today, tickets for the Law Firm Growth Summit 2021 are going on sale. And I know we're still in the midst of COVID, and maybe in-person conferences are going to come back later in the year, but this is going to be an entirely virtual event. However, it's going to be different than any virtual event you've ever attended, guaranteed. And we're really pulling out all the stops to provide an event that's going to give you all of the things that you've come to expect at an in-person conference in a virtual delivery format. We want to make sure that you have the opportunity to connect with other people. We're going to have lots of networking opportunities. We want the ability for you to be able to have face-to-face conversations with the vendors. You're going to be able to do that. And we want to provide you with great speakers, great content, and more importantly, hands-on workshops so that when you leave the event, you leave with things that are already created, already done, that you can just implement in your law firm, and you're not leaving with a to-do list a mile long that you're never going to get to. And those are the highlights of what we're trying to bring to you. The overall theme of the event is preparing yourself for the firm of the future. And this is a topic that I've been talking about lately on the podcast, off the podcast. And it's really, COVID has accelerated the change that's coming in the legal industry. And you need to see the change. You need to embrace the change. You need to set yourself up for the future. How are legal services going to be delivered? How are you going to prepare yourself for that so that you continue to add value for who you are as an attorney, and you also automate and streamline and really make it more cost effective for the client, the process and the experience that they're receiving. So we're going to focus on that during this event and really help you with getting your firm to not only thrive today, but to be ready to thrive into the future. And I'm so excited about the event, and we're going to be announcing all kinds of cool stuff over the next few weeks. But you can get your tickets today, and here's the catch: they're on sale right now, and this is going to be the cheapest that they will ever be. This is like the early bird. Go to lawfirmgrowthsummit.com, www.lawfirmgrowthsummit.com, and you can purchase your tickets right now, and they are significantly discounted off of the off of the rate that they're going for. So I don't want to give the discount here because that price is going to go up. And if you're listening to this in the future, I don't want you to feel badly about the price that you're paying, because no matter what you pay, no matter when you buy your ticket, it's going to be money well spent. It's going to be well worth it. And I'm super excited to be bringing this to you. And we're going to have some really cool announcements along the way. We're planning some really exciting giveaways at the event. I'm not going to allude to anything specific yet, but this is going to be, it's going to be super exciting is all I can say. Anyway, enjoy this enjoy this replay, and looking forward to catching you on Thursday. Go to www.lawfirmgrowthsummit.com. Grab your tickets today. See ya. Daniel has a brand new practice, and he is trying to figure out the quandary of finding clients. So Gordon already has chimed in with an opinion there that you're not looking to find the clients. You're going to let the clients find you. So I'd like to go down this discussion and have each of our panelists share their input of how Daniel would go about doing that. What are the things that he can do to make himself more visible? And the truth is that we then need to kind of figure out, hey, Daniel, here's all these ideas, but you got to choose one thing and go with that. If we throw a bunch of ideas at him and then leave him to try to figure out what that is, he's going to be a little bit kind of stuck there.
So Daniel's an estate planning attorney in Atlanta, and you said you just went out on your own, which is awesome. Congratulations. You're in for an adventure and a lot of fun. So how long have you been in practice total, Daniel?
So I think you were asking a question while I was trying to get things figured out. So somebody could
Yeah, I asked how long have you been in practice total?
So I've been in practice for about 5 years. I graduated in 2015, worked for a judge for a short period of time after that, Court of Appeals, Georgia Court of Appeals, and then went into a couple of different small firms. Been focusing on estate planning that entire time, and more recently started the elder law special needs stuff, and had a bit of a falling out with a firm in July and made the decision to start my own firm at that point.
Do you have a sort of clear idea in your head about who your sort of perfect client is?
Yeah, I've got a couple of different ideas depending on which part of the practice I'm looking at.
Sure.
So obviously, being estate planning, I do estate plans for everyone, because if the money's going to walk in the door, I'm going to take it. So on the Medicaid elder law side, I'm really looking at the younger family, 30s, 40s, who's got the parents who are starting to think about Medicaid, nursing homes, things like that. And I can do the basic estate plan for that young family who may have minor children, those types of things at this point, but get kind of my foot in the door as the family's attorney for this whole area when the parents do need that help. And then kind of very similarly on the special needs side is really a very similar client, because of the fact that you've got the minor child who's about to age out of the juvenile benefits and go into SSI, things like that.
Okay, so
in your previous firm, were you doing any business development, or was that all just being handed to you?
So I was doing I was not actually doing the business development myself. I was on a partner track, but our relationship ended before I got into the actual business development. So I've done seminars in the past, but I've never done the actual marketing of seminars or things like that.
I was going to ask about seminars. So, okay. So you've done seminars in the past.
Yeah, and I did one at my current firm, my firm. I did it at my church, which had a pretty good turnout and created a good amount of revenue, but I've really struggled with, and that was in October. October was a pretty good month. And then November and December have basically been flat, with basically no business as I try to figure out how to move forward.
Great.
So is there a reason why you haven't done the seminar again each month?
So the October seminar was, like I said, with my church. And so it doesn't, I haven't found another location to get into. And I'll admit part of it is, and I'm trying to, there we go, video's up.
Hey,
But
Daniel.
part of it is the fact that I just haven't really found where to find the clients. Like I found locations that I can do seminars. I've got my seminars prepared. I'm more than happy to put out the money for the location, for the food, for all of those type of things. But being very new and my wife being the one who's supporting us right now with very little liquid assets, it's hard for me to, and maybe this is my fault and what you guys can scold me on, but it's hard for me to say, okay, I'm going to do a seminar on January 15th and just kind of hope that people show up, because I don't know how to get people to show up yet.
This is Charles
Yep.
Krug. My actually my presentation as part of this was how to get speaking engagements, and I've been in practice on my own now 18 years as a solo, and I'm in Chicago, so I think of myself as a little fish in a big city. And I do a lot of public speaking. I'm doing a presentation at Chicago City Hall this coming Wednesday. It's a legal update for the end of the year. I think one of the best, some of the ways to get speaking engagements is to have other people set it up for you. I don't set up any of my own speaking engagements. I work with other companies like Financial Poise, Westlaw, Lexus, the City of Chicago, various chambers of commerce or business associations, anybody really. I'll speak in front of anybody pretty much at any time. And it works. I mean, it's helped me get a lot of business, and it's a self-perpetuating way of getting business. I think Gordon put it best at the beginning of this discussion a while back when he said, "You don't try to go out to the people, get people to come to you." And I think that speaking engagements is one of the ways to do that. But all in that same context, you don't want to be the one setting it up, because frankly, the overhead and the hassle is it's just a lot of hassle to set it up. So I have other people set it up for me. And that's how I operate it. It's the City of Chicago. It's at City Hall. They set it up for me, and they've referred me then to other organizations for speaking engagements. And it's become a self-perpetuating sort of thing over the years now. I do about maybe at least a dozen presentations a year, webinars, live presentations, things like that. So.
And that's something that I have in the works for 2020. It's getting all the ink on the paper, essentially. I've had a couple of preliminary conversations with an HR benefits company in town so the reason I do the work that I do is because I've dealt with it myself. My mom went through a situation similar to what my clients are going through. And I met a guy who owns a benefits HR company whose mother went through the same type of a thing. So he's really passionate around the elder law, Medicaid, education side of things. And he essentially offered to kind of sponsor seminars for me for the companies that he works with, or the companies that are his clients. And that's something that we're talking about going into 2020, but there's, like I said, no ink on the paper yet. So it's all just kind of hoping that things pan out.
So
I'm sorry, go on.
good, Charles.
Yeah, so I think that's one way of doing it, is to partner up with people that have an affinity with you, some commonalities, things like that. And then also, once the seminar's set up, I think you have to do a lot of promotion yourself, although that can be done pretty easily through social media. It's just basically clicking and pasting or posting different topics on it. And then I've also found that other people start picking up or promoting it for you too, which it's been really important for me, is when other people promote presentations I'm giving. So that's part of the self-perpetuating aspect of it, is to get others to promote, set it up, and do a lot of the heavy lifting for you. And you just show up and do the presentation.
And I completely agree on the summit. We have a lot of estate planning and some elder law specific clients that seminars are a great way. some have taken them and are starting to do some like webinars as well. So you know, kind of something like this, right? So you know, things were available kind of on demand today, so you could kind of have people do that. Facebook ads actually have worked really well, getting butts in seats. We've actually tested compared to like radio, print, and Facebook that pennies on the dollar compared to the other two. So which is good news, by the way, because Facebook's pretty hard for a lot of attorneys because they're so picky on ads. Estate planning and elder law, they're pretty good with. So you know, because you're set, you know, a lot more like financial seminar stuff. So we've actually had pretty good success there. And then the other thing I said, you know, when you're just getting started, for anybody, I'll tell you this, and I don't know if you did our free book promotion, but like the first section of our book is kind of about this topic I'm about to talk about. Is it, you know, if you're getting your name out there and you're hustling and you're doing, you know, you've done some work in the past and you have some, you know, clients, people who know you, you're out doing some seminars, just making sure that, you know, your Google My Business, the review, like the basics of what we call protecting your referrals. So all the hustling you're doing, when somebody goes and looks for you, just make sure that's cleaned up and is good. Because that's next to nothing in cost. You can do a lot of it yourself. And you know, the basic website, that kind of stuff. But you know, you can kind of get, as people start seeing your name out there for seminars on social media, all the things Charles was talking about, other people are going to promote you. They're going to go look your name up, and just like that. That's such an easy win. And if you didn't grab our book, I mean, like I said, it's we're sending them out here probably in the next few weeks. But it's the free book promotion thing. But the first section that literally walks kind of step by step of how to do it. So you know, you don't even have to pay somebody to do that part, which is awesome.
Okay, I'm sorry. I was saying I had been watching your session before the call started, and so I had to pause it. But because that's one of the things that I'm dealing with right now is with limited capital, where do I put my money? Do I go SEO? Do I go pay-per-click? All those type of things. So that's certainly something that's very top of mind for me right now, and I was watching that right.
Yeah, so small solo, I think, you know, especially in your category, which is great because seminars do work, hustling, getting your name out there is work. Everything Charles said was spot on, and you know, promotions and stuff. But I would just say, like, there's things you can do on your own for, you know, like with a little sweat equity that will get you pretty far down. It builds a foundation so that if you ever, you know, get some, you know, more capital and can do some, you know, marketing with you know, agency or some other stuff, you've got that base down. And that's, you know, like the Google My Business, the simple website, making sure some keywords are okay. And you can just blogging article, right? Whatever. I mean, there's simple stuff to do that you can do on your own with sweat equity if capital is an issue right now, and get out and, you know, like network and speak. Speaking is great in that category, man.
Yeah, so
I have a couple of quick ideas, and then I'm going to have to run. So if you don't mind, I'll just jump in.
Go ahead, Gordon.
One, marketing is not a one-off thing. So don't rule out doing the same talk for the same church every couple of months. And remember, you're not taking from them, you're serving, you're providing a service to them. It's good for their parishioners. So they'll if you're giving value, they're going to want you to come back. And look, not everybody can come the first time you do your talk. So that's sort of point number one. The other thing is, don't just count on your church. Ask the pastor who you deal with there or whoever, are there other parishes nearby, other places that you should be talking to, and ask them for the introduction or even, you know, like a little testimonial letter. And then you can circulate that in the neighborhood to the other churches. And, you know, you can become a pretty big fish in a small pond pretty quickly that way.
And to add on to what Gordon just said, about 75% of the content I talk about at presentations is recycled from other presentations. It's not, I would say the other 25% I have to come up with new stuff, you know, updates, things like that. So that's something to keep in mind. And then also, when you do this type, what Gordon said about talking with these people, getting them to refer you to others, that's really key. And they'll work with you. The people who set up presentations for me love to refer me on to others because they realize that you're providing something of value to them basically for free, and they'll help you out in that regard. The same as doing pro bono work. When I do pro bono work with others, I say, hey, you know, one of the things I hope to get out of this is if you like me and respect me, then you will refer me on or introduce me to people.
So Charles, real quick on that.
Go ahead, Mark.
Because I just curious, because this is what I found, and I think a lot of people don't realize this is we also speak a lot. I mean, that's pretty much all the business we got is because we, you know, speak at CLEs and speak around the country at legal events. But I found that just because you get up in front of somebody and start talking, the respect and the like of you as a person like goes up so much that they're excited to refer you because they think it's cool that they know a speaker they can even refer.
Yeah, exactly.
And I don't think feeling is more special, but just by doing that, yeah, I ask that all the time, but who can you refer? It's like, oh my gosh, I would love to refer you. Yeah, like that's awesome advice from Gordon and Charles.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
and
constantly deal with the imposter syndrome, by the way. So, you know,
we
I'm
all
like,
do.
yeah. So,
We all do. So I want to tie this all together because I want to take other questions. So Daniel, it sounds like everyone is in agreement that it is not time at this point for you to put money behind your marketing. At
yeah,
this point, it's time for you to put some sweat equity in because your budget is small, because you don't have that base established yet that you can afford to spend. SEO is an expensive game. You're not ready for that. That's not going to be the best use of your resources because you don't have enough resources to win that game.
yeah,
Right now, you need to go and hit the pavement and find places where you can get these speaking engagements. The only thing that I'm going to add to what was already said is that you can repurpose your speaking engagements in other ways. So if you get a speaking engagement, go ahead and get yourself a tripod and a camera and record your talk, because now you can then take that talk and post it on social media and start to build a social media following of people who are interested in what you have to say. And you can hire a VA over in the Philippines, for who's a video editor for just like 30, 40, 50 bucks a video that they can cut it into clips. They can add a header on the front of it, make it really fancy for you so that you have one 60-minute talk can provide probably 20 to 30 social media posts between quotes that you have with quote graphics and little snippets of audio. And then you can start to put that out there on LinkedIn, on Facebook, Instagram, whatever is the right platform for your, YouTube, for your audience. Start to repurpose that stuff and start to slowly build a following of people who are interested in what you have to say, because then the next time you put something out, it creates a greater affinity for you. So I think that if you take the pieces that you've heard in the various sessions and just piece them together and say, okay, these are the things that I could do on my own without needing to spend any money right now, you'll see that that's going to take you pretty far. You don't need to find the customers. You need to just get in front of them. And then as you share information and provide value, they're going to start coming to you, and you start to get strategic about it. So when you do a talk, make sure you have a way to collect people's information. Don't just do the talk and walk away. Make sure that you have a way to either there's a sign-in sheet or there's something that you're offering them for free to sign up to your mailing list, your email list, or something like that, and then follow up with them. Have one-on-one conversations with them. After the summit is over, I'm going to be doing a session specifically on getting leads on LinkedIn, and the entire crux of that model, the whole way that thing works, is basically having these one-on-one conversations. It's how to find the people who are interested in having those one-on-one conversations, but ultimately the purpose of it is to drive people to get on the phone with you. And that's, I think, what you need to focus on is the speaking engagements to a phone call to an in-person meeting. That's where you're needing to go. So we have a question before that from Melissa Pierce. Charles, you popped an answer into her, but I want to give us all a chance to talk on that. It says, with my niche of gun trust, I want to capitalize on my speaking that I do with the continuing legal education and gain recognition as the expert in my area on gun trusts. What is the best way to gain the status of an expert with potential clients? So I just want to spend a few minutes on this. Charles, you gave her a quick one-sentence answer, but maybe you can share with everyone else who's here. Is an expert status something that you seek when you're doing these engagements? And is it like some strategic plan to get there, or is it just something that's a byproduct of the speaking engagements?
I think it's a byproduct of the speaking engagements more than strategic plan sort of thing. Melissa's question also refers to continuing legal education. And I think if you're giving CLE presentations, especially at bar associations and those types of groups, that also kind of gives you the expert status, because you're giving presentations on other attorneys or other professionals, which is really a key thing. So I think getting in front of those types of organizations, bar associations, and the different other legal organizations is really it helps really to get that expert status.
Yeah, and Mark, I'm going to turn to you in a moment, but I'm just going to throw in, Melissa, you can be strategic by preparing something that was useful to the attorneys who are sitting in the room. So if you can prepare like a bulleted list of, points to watch out for or to know, and then you hand that to them and they don't have to do all the research that you've already done. And you've basically said, hey, here's the things to watch out for. Here's the things you want to make sure are in there. Here's the things you want to make sure to discuss with your client, things like that. And you hand them this 1 or 2 sheet. You don't even hand it to them, right? You tell them, look, I've prepared this for you. Just shoot me an email and I'll send it to you. And now you're collecting their contact information in the process. But when you give that to them, that's going to elevate your status, because you not only you're providing value, but you're providing clear research to them that they would have had to do on their own. Mark, over to you.
Yeah, I think Charles and I kind of just mentioned that earlier in passing there, that just by speaking, the expertise, that's amazing. Like just people assume. First of all, people hate to speak. I mean, you've heard the stories, right? People say speaking is worse than death and stuff, right? So just by getting up in front of somebody and having something to say and putting a little bit of effort into it, you build up some instant credibility than just talking to somebody at a networking event. Definitely agree with that. Other things we found, so writing, like if you take some of your content and kind of and pull it into a small ebook type thing, and then you have a book, being a little author and speaker adds some credibility. And then I think that in terms of strategic side of it for us, because we've been working on that for the last 9 years, right? We continue to reach out to people and say, where can we speak? But it's also now, so we speak a lot of CLE, so that's reaching out to bar directors and stuff. But podcasts are great. Getting on other podcasts where other lawyers, so if I'm not saying this is a good target for this, but let's say lawyers wanted to talk about unique practice niche areas that lawyers are doing, and you could talk about this gun trust, right? So that'd be a great place to be in front of a ton of lawyers, because I assume by your question it was you want referrals from other lawyers to this unique area you got. That's what I was kind of getting from the question.
Yeah, and speaking about podcasts, I would tell you I have a podcast, Profit with Law. I could care less about gun trusts. That's not what my audience wants, right? But what they do want to know is, how are people building their business, and how does that translate into my practice? So if you have a story to tell about a mistake you've made, or a success you've had, or a specific strategy you're using, you'd be a great guest on my show. We can focus on that. And then you've already made that association. People are now looking at you as somebody who's an elite firm owner, and now you've spoken about what you do, and now anybody who's listening, if they have anything that comes up with gun trust, they can be like, oh yeah, who is that person on the podcast? Let me search for that. They'll find the podcast, find you, and get in touch with you. So I do love the idea of podcasts. It's another stage to speak on. It's just virtual.
Something to add on to, and that it might help to answer some of Jonathan's question, is panel presentations with other professionals. I do a lot of presentations with other attorneys. It's a way to spread out the overhead and the labor, and it also helps confirm the expert status, because especially if you're presenting with general counsels from major corporations or partners from other firms. And that's something I've been able to do over the last number of years, and I find that they're really helpful. Again, being a little fish in a big pond, it's a way to to show that I'm I've equal status with a general counsel from McDonald's, or a partner from a much larger international law firm, that type of stuff. So
yeah, super smart, Charles.
Thanks. A question from Mark, and this relates to I don't know how to pronounce this, GYI's presentation. Also, a lot of the material in both your presentation and GYI's presentation relates to attorneys representing consumers in certain practice areas, example, family law, plaintiffs, personal injury, criminal defense, etc. What about if your prospective or ideal client is a small business owner and you have a practice geared towards them, helping them start and or grow their small businesses, etc.? Do you draw a difference in marketing approaches between attorneys or firms who have consumer-facing practices versus a business-oriented practice?
Yeah, I get that question a lot, actually. And I think it's the idea that, business consumers are different than people. That's the kind of the gist I get from that. So I always say that, people hire people, not a business that hires people, right? So it's at the end of the day, it is a people decision. So the fact you do need to understand, okay, my target market, what are their concerns? So if it's another business and they're, let's say, small business owners looking to kind of get going, well, maybe their concerns are more about the fear of not knowing what they're supposed to do. So how do you play into that? Because you probably know a lot of the questions that you get. So where is the questions coming from? What fear, what pain, what goals? Then you can really understand that consumer, so that when you're talking on your website about how you solve their problems, you're writing posts, you're putting stuff on. Maybe you skew a little bit toward LinkedIn because it's a business type of conversation. That's one thing. Although I find that we put stuff on Facebook and LinkedIn, and sometimes stuff works great on Facebook. Other times it's LinkedIn. But so maybe both still good. But it's all about still the content is why the person needs what they need, and playing to that. And that's a lot of the comments. I know Guy's presentation was all about ethos and pathos and logos and stuff. So we're he's talked about really getting the mind of the consumer. Your consumer is a business owner. It's not a business. It's a business owner or a general counsel or a someone in the department. It's still a person. You can think of if it's in big corporate company, maybe it's more fear of am I going to get looked at as stupid, or lose my job or lose my title, right? There's things that everybody's concerned about. Playing to that information is take that concepts and use everything else we talked about from a consumer perspective. People still go online and search for names. So, all that stuff still matters.
Just add on, I apologize to Guy for butchering your name. So thanks for pointing it out, Mark.
All right, Charles, do you have anything
he's in
to
your
add?
Backyard too, I think, Charles. I think he's in Chicago.
Right, okay.
Well, then we'll have to connect you two and make sure that you guys get lunch or something. Make sure Guy pays for it, though.
Yeah, he didn't
I'm
come
a
on.
lawyer. I
thought he
always
was
do
coming
that.
on,
So
He's not here. He's a slacker.
good guy. Guy's great. So yeah, you'll have to connect, Charles.
For those of you who don't know, Guy is also the owner of Attorney Sync and another one of our sponsors. So we're just taking jabs at him, but he's an awesome guy, and really, one of the reasons that this summit is in existence. And we'll talk more about him on the day that he's sponsored that track. But Attorney Sync is another wonderful company to check into, and they'll do some really cool poking around on your site and do an audit for you. So stay tuned for that. Charles, do you have anything to add to this question, specifically around the difference between marketing to a business versus marketing to a consumer when it comes to a law firm?
yeah, I mean, I'm a B2B attorney myself, so I focus more in social media. I focus more on LinkedIn, and then also media stuff, getting media interviews. I've developed a really good rapport with a lot of reporters, and I do very well now with different media outlets. Some of them are, and especially my area, labor and employment law, like the Society of Human Resources Management. So I think that's really key, to develop those types of channels and to have them come again. So you're not going out to them like Gordon was saying earlier, to have them come to you. So I think that's really important, is to have that become self-perpetuating, because I've had reporters who've interviewed me for one thing, and then they come back to me for a number of other things. Or SHRM, which is a pretty good outlet for HR and labor and employment related stuff. I get contacted by the reporters pretty often, and I was just contacted this week by last Friday by one of the reporters, and something should be going out on that pretty soon. So I think that's really important, is to make yourself accessible to reporters and the media. And also part of that, when you're responding to inquiries from the media, be succinct and concise, and try to turn a phrase. I like to use alliteration in a lot of my printed responses. So, things like that, to be sort of clever, use funny metaphors. I was once talking about a government agency being as transparent as the Chicago River. So, things like that help a lot. So.
Yeah, and I would add something else to think about for you, Jonathan, is your target market is both somebody who's starting a business and somebody who's already in business. Now, somebody who's starting a business is not yet a B2B, situation. They're technically a consumer, right? How in the world are you going to get in front of somebody who's thinking about starting a business, right? So you kind of need to toe both lines. Like, I don't think that there's a difference between B2C and B2B. You need to get in front of somebody who is either wanting to start a business or has already started a business. So the question is where are they going to look for information? Where are they going to find out more about their idea and what they should do? And then maybe those are places where you start to make yourself known. So, for example, the Chamber of Commerce or the local, business development organization where people might go to find out more information. That's somewhere where you might want to start doing talks, following Charles's model, to have your name there, so that when somebody comes and says, "Hey, I'm thinking about starting a business. Do you have a recommendation for an attorney?" And they're like, "Oh, well, Jonathan does a talk here every 2 or 3 months. He's probably a good guy for you to check out." And then, that'll naturally make you a referral source. The other thing that I want to tell you is that there is a lot of referrals that'll come from people who are like-minded in the area. In other words, you can align yourself with somebody who does something that they would go to check out. In other words, somebody who's starting a business might go to talk to an accountant at the same time that they're going to go to talk to an attorney. Yeah. So if you make relationships with accountants who are going to be referral sources, then essentially they will be sending you business whenever it's something that they can handle. Now, you kind of feel like they're your competition also, because I'm sure that the accountants that you're going to be talking to, if they're helping somebody start a business, they're probably creating the entity for them. So that might be the same thing you're doing. But I'm sure there's a lot of things that you do with creating employment agreements, non-compete agreements, and contractor agreements, things like that you might be able to do that the accountant can't do. And you can really, that's a perfect, relationship. Payroll companies, another one where somebody who's starting a business goes straight to hiring employees. They're going to be looking for a payroll company. The attorney might not be their first phone call, so you can get referrals from these places. I want to direct you to the Profit with Law podcast, episode number 25. We didn't have her as a speaker here on the summit. My bad. I should have invited her. But Stacey Brown Randall wrote the book, Generating Referrals Without Asking. And I interviewed her on the podcast on episode 25. And Tina is going to drop the link for that into the comments so that you have it. But that's a great episode for you to listen to learn how to create these relationships with others, to create referral sources that are going to bring you ongoing leads without needing to ask them for those referrals, just to make them naturally want to give it to you. I think that's a great system for you to look into as well with these referral partners. Charles, Mark, anything else you want to add before we go to the next question?
Just one quick thing, because I know I talked a lot about SEO and PPC, and really, I haven't mentioned those things yet. But what Charles was talking about, and you were talking about, speaking at these places. So media partners, speaking at if you have a startup community that has areas where people can speak, and you have some kind of something of value, or you have your website where people can link back to your bio, you end up with all this search engine optimization, link juice, as we call it. And it's like media and appearances and speaking engagements are some of the best, cheapest SEO you can do.
Yeah.
It's great for that. And so it just builds up that reputation. So now when somebody starts searching on your name and your area, you're just dominating that page. We're like, well, of course this is the expert. Look at him, right? So that's another thing to think about, is going out there and hustling and getting these media or the speaking gigs in the startup community out there will lead to other benefits as well.
Something to add on too, and I found this to be really helpful, is to include clients in on this. And what I mean is that in media interviews, I've involved some clients of mine. One of the things I found is I tend to contradict other attorneys in my field sometimes. And what I've done is to show the reporter that I'm not just speaking off the cuff or give them wrong information, is I'll involve a client of mine and we'll actually discuss a real case, a real situation that they've been through. And in one situation, years ago, I got a client of mine, featured in Business Week. There's a half-page photo of him and things like that. So I often try to get other clients of mine involved in like media interviews, things like that, especially when I find out that other attorneys are feeding the media bad information, which I find to be the case about half the time anyway. So.
And I want to circle back to Mark real briefly, because you mentioned that you didn't talk about SEO and PPC, and you went down the SEO road. And I was thinking, here you're going to talk about PPC because somebody's looking to start a business or they're looking for solutions. They're actively seeking a solution. Those are the perfect people to put PPC behind. PPC is pay-per-click, guys. So it's advertising on Google. So when somebody does a search, the first things that show up in the search results are ads, and that's something that you can put money behind and have that show up. I imagine that at least for somebody starting a business, he's got LegalZoom he's competing against and stuff like that, where PPC might be expensive because he's going against the big guns. But do you have any guidance for? We have no idea. Jonathan's not here, so we can't talk about his budget. But how does somebody know whether they're ready to run PPC ads for something like this? And how do they run it in a way that they are monetizing it pretty quickly, liquidating their ad spend pretty quickly, so that they're not digging a big hole before they know whether it's working or not?
Yeah, man, great question. First of all, I think I kind of alluded to this with the last person. Like have a base before you do anything with PPC and everything. Have your basic website. It can be like the templated WordPress site or something that you kind of clean up. It doesn't, don't spend like, $20,000, $50,000 or something like that, like anywhere from like 2 to 10,000 probably, just get a website, be done. Then work on your, we call protecting your referrals, reputation management is what some people call it, but just, you Google My Business, make sure your name's everywhere correctly. Just get all the basics done. Once you've got that done, then if you're thinking about PPC, start, if you're going to do it yourself, be careful. It's just easy to make a lot of mistakes, but you can start with a smaller budget. The cool thing about PPC is you can test out a lot of things quickly, but you're going to be testing them with you have a small budget. You're going to be testing them like, very tight blocks, right? So you can't just let that run. It's not going to get a whole week worth of stuff. So you can test things quickly and kind of say, oh, well, that worked. That didn't work. I'm not going to do that again. Let me try this one. But if you do a lot of smaller tests, you can kind of dial in what's working. Then you can start raising your dollars on it. And it's not like that there is a diminishing return. It's not like you just, these straight linear lines like I hear some people talk about where, oh, once you get $1, you need $2 out or something, like that. But it's still test small, then grow it. I think one of the issues though, one thing I didn't bring up PPC in this market is starting a business. You're not just competing against other lawyers. You're competing against all the people that want a brand new entrepreneur as a possible thing, from CRM companies to like everybody's typing the same type of things in, and you're competing against a wide variety of people, unless they're typing in like, what's a good contract for a partnership agreement or something. The starting a business is a little tough on the PPC.
Okay.
Just because you're competing against big pockets.
So let's go to Nicole's question. Nicole's question is, do you have any tips for marketing strategies for a solo practicing different areas of law? For example, do you have separate strategies, websites, social media accounts, DBA names? For example, traffic, criminal defense, business contract law, and personal injury. So it sounds like Nicole is being a Swiss Army knife of law, and she wants to know, what do I do for my marketing? Because I've got all these different areas to market about or market to. So Mark, I want you to start. It looks like you definitely have something on your mind. We're also joined now with Neil Tyra on the call. So after Mark, I want to jump to Neil, who is running a solo practice himself and has also dabbled in different practice areas or run different practice areas for periods of time. I don't know if there was overlapping practice areas during that time, but I'd like to get his opinion on that as well. And then we'll jump to you, Charles, and we'll go to me.
Yeah. I another question I get a bunch. So let's see the best way to answer. So it used to be, one of the reasons this question goes up a lot, it used to be, gosh, maybe 7 years ago, whatever, if you had domains that were kind of like very, what we call keyword rich or keyword stuffed, like criminal defense attorney, New York, or something like that, right? Like those would rank better just because there was a lot of keywords crammed in them. And so you had a lot of law firms that had different practice areas, creating like 4, 5, 6 websites for each thing. It's not 7 years ago. It's not 5 years. It's not even 3 years ago, right? I mean, like it's today, and that doesn't really carry the weight it used to, or pretty much at all. So I always recommend that if you got a practice, you've got kind of one core website, one core business to, that has some different things. Keep it all under one property. All the work you do building up this website, if you wanted to have multiple websites and multiple domains, was one of the questions there. You're kind of like fighting a battle. If your army is only so big, you can only fight a battle on one front. If you get big enough and you want to start doing things where you can fight battles on multiple fronts, just like double the amount of money it would take to fight, right? So if I'm a really medium to large firm, I can afford to like kind of have spend all the marketing money to have all these different kind of nuanced areas. But if you're kind of a solo firm, keep it under one website, focus all your work and traffic around that area, and just the key is try to not be as confusing to the person coming to your website. Make it very clear, like, here's the things I do, and if you're interested in this, jump down to this area and only talk about that once they're there. That's kind of like my high level kind of website advice on that front. Is a question we get a lot. It's something, and I think we get it a lot because there's still a lot of remnants of the old days when a different method worked on Google. Did I miss part of the question? Because you read it. I was listening as you were reading. So.
I had to unmute myself. Sorry. She had just wanted to know, do you have any tips for marketing strategies for a solo practicing different areas of law? For example, do you have separate strategies, websites, social media accounts, DBA names? For example, traffic, criminal defense, business, contract law, and personal injury.
If you're a solo practicing those different areas, I would recommend having one website, one social media, it would be a massive pain. It's hard enough as a solo to keep up with that on your own, for just the one. To keep up with, 4 different social media accounts, 4 different websites, it would just be too much, and you probably wouldn't do as good a job if you were just able to focus on one. And you can just do some more work on your website, or do work on a website to be very clear of what you do and who you do it for.
Okay, perfect. Neil, I'm going to jump over to you. I want to get your input on this.
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to respond. I apologize for being a little late to the Q&A here. I don't disagree with Mark's assessment in terms of the mechanics of what it was. It Nicole? What Nicole was asking. Yeah, you only want one website. You only want one social media identity. I guess I would take some issue, or maybe want to explore a little further why you want to do all of that in the first place. A practice that has multiple practice areas means that you're going to have to diversify yourself or your staff, and usually in the beginning, when you said you were a solo, there's not enough of you to go around to become an expert on 6 or 7 different practice areas. And I think you'd be better off kind of focusing on one and then maybe adding those additional practice areas later down the road when you have a successful enough practice that can justify bringing somebody else on board or bringing some additional support that would address those needs. Because one of the challenges for developing a marketing plan for different practice areas is frequently they represent different reasons as to why people go to an attorney. So if you're being client centered from the beginning in your marketing, you have to ask yourself, well, what are the circumstances that would lead an individual to want to see an attorney? Because the marketing is different, and I can tell you, from my own personal experience, how that's so. If you are a family law attorney or a personal injury attorney, a criminal defense attorney, most often something bad has happened to the client, the potential client. They been served with divorce papers, they had a car accident, they were arrested. And so your job to attract those clients is for them, when they ask the question, I need an attorney to help me with this, who do I know? You want them to think of you. You want to be top of mind. So your approach to marketing in that sense is top of mind and awareness oriented. On the other hand, if you're doing something like business law, business formation law, or my practice area, estate planning, sometimes there's an event that spurs the client to go in that direction. But most often it's just one of really educating the client to know why they need an attorney in the first place or why this issue is important. So what I found was, like, when I switched from a litigation practice where I wanted to be primarily top of mind to a estate planning practice where I really I needed to educate the potential client, it was a complete paradigm shift. So I went from doing a lot of advertising to doing a lot of education. And so I would urge you, Nicole, to kind of refine your target area. It's a lot easier to hit the target if you're aiming in one small area than to hit a bunch of multiple targets if you're aiming in 7 or 8 different different practice areas.
Awesome advice, Neil. I just want to chime in. I was on the same exact page as Neil as far as why the heck would you want to do all these things? As a matter of fact, I want to turn you to a podcast episode that I did on Profit with Law, and that's episode 29, Why Choosing a Niche Will Skyrocket Your Firm. And I really think that you should listen to that episode because I go through the things that it's going to do for you. It's not just the overwhelm and the inability to really be a master of all. It's also very, very strategic to bring clients to you. When you become known as the go-to person for something specific, then that's going to generate referrals. That's going to generate leads to you. That's going to make you known for that. You can always add, as Neil has said, you can always add more later. So the question is how do you choose what that niche is? So I encourage you to go and listen to that episode. I think you'll get a lot from it. Charles, over to you. Do you have any input for Nicole?
Yeah, the only thing I could add, and I agree with everything that Mark and Neil and you just said, the only I take it from a branding perspective. To me, branding is very important. I'm a solo practitioner myself, and my firm is just Charles Kruger, Labor and Employment Law, blah, blah, blah. And that's how people know me. And if I was wearing more hats, juggling more balls, I don't think anybody would know what I did or, would really understand anything I did. So I think from a branding standpoint, it helps really to focus. One URL, one phone number, one email address, one practice area, so on and so forth.
All right, perfect. So I think that this was helpful, Nicole. I'm a solo practitioner, primarily in family law, and in the process of transitioning to estate planning. Neil, sounds like it's up your alley.
Yeah.
Any marketing tips in regards to transition? In my community, I'm known as the divorce attorney and would like others to know now that I can provide more. Okay, so I'm not sure if you're transitioning or if you're adding. So I just want to make sure that we can clarify that because you said that now you can provide more. So are you looking to keep the family law?
I asked her that question, Moshe, and
Okay.
She responded to say that she is looking to transition now that she has 2 babies at home.
Got it. That's what that comment was. Okay.
Yep.
Also, any tips for marketing for end of year? I was thinking of passing out 2020 calendars with my new practice area or cards. So Neil, you're going to start. And from there, we will go just around the room to see who has any advice for Diana. So go ahead, Neil.
Yeah, so Diana, this is the exact transition I made. I was a practicing family law attorney for about a dozen years, and my kids actually moved away. They grew up and moved to the West Coast, and with that, I wanted to decouple myself from the courthouse. And so I was looking to transition to a practice area that would get me out of litigation, but still allow me to service people in a personal way because I'm a people person, and the natural fit for me was estate planning. So I spent quite a bit of time, getting technically competent and able to provide those services so that I was comfortable offering that to clients. Now, in terms of transition, you've got a great situation because I'm certain that you have a practice management system or nothing more, a card catalog of all of your clients that you've served for family law. And you say you're known as the divorce attorney. Well, that's perfect because you can go back to every single one of those clients and let them know in a personal way that you are now providing estate planning services. And in fact, you're transitioning to estate planning on a full-time basis. Lots and lots and lots of people who have gone through a divorce, definitely need to do this because either they need their estate plan updated to revisit it and take off the old spouse and maybe cut out some of the old beneficiaries or whatever that might be, or they need to do one for the first time. And it's critically important that they get that done. So you need to come at it from that perspective, and I would definitely mine those past family law clients, the ones that you've done divorces for. Now, you've probably done some other family law issues, child custody, maybe some prenuptials. Again, each of those types of clients has a different need with respect to estate planning or potential need. So I would, keep listening to this summit so that you get all this great tools and information. A automatic email campaign tailored towards those specific kinds of needs, I think, is a perfect thing for you to do to market your new practice area. And you can send batch emails or a drip campaign. You'll hear more about that later on in the summit as we talk about those techniques. But you can do that to specifically address the estate planning needs of your former clients. So that's the easiest way to transition. Go back and mine those past contacts for their own needs. And then, tangentially, you can also ask them if they know anybody who needs estate planning, because these people all know, like, and trust you. Normally, I'm a little hesitant to suggest asking for referrals. That's a topic area that we can discuss at some point. But if they've already been your client and you've already served them well and you have a great relationship with them, go back and ask. You're doing estate planning now, and maybe through the course of your representation, you understand their situation such that an opportunity is glaringly apparent that you can suggest to them that they may need. So I'd really work that and heavily mine that past client database.
Yeah, so I think Diana is here with us. Diana, let's do a quick audio check.
All right. Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you. Move on over to Mark. Mark, do you have any feedback for Diana on this question?
So I probably going to second a lot. Neil said, I think if you've already got, kind of some top of mind awareness with a bunch of people in the community, using that. I mean, if email is a great and inexpensive way. So, second that. If the top of mind awareness is that the community, your former clients or your people you're connected with on your mailing list have expected you to send out calendar or cards or whatever you've done in the past, and you want to continue doing that, and then kind of insert something in there that talks about that. That's great too. I mean, it's just whatever you can do to stay top of mind and switch that messaging to what you do. But I don't really want to go on because Neil covered it so well, and it's exactly what he did. So use the experience share right there, man.
All right. Thank you, Mark. Charles, do you have anything you want to add to Diana's question?
No, actually, I don't. Nothing constructive. So.
Okay, perfect. So, Diana, the one thing that I would add is to piggyback on what Neil said. So, Neil told you harness your existing database. These are people you already have a relationship with. Let them know you're in a new practice area, and then also ask them to refer business to you. Another thing that you can do, and this Alexis Katz, who is the new law business model, she is, every time I say her name, my Amazon Alexa kicks in here on my desk. Anyway, it's listening right now. Don't say anything. Shh, shh, it's okay. So she is specifically serves estate planning firm owners and teaches them how to grow their practice. And one of the things she shares in her session on day, let me double check before I give the wrong information. I think it's day 3. Let's see. Alexis is on. I said her name. Day 4. So she's on day 4. In her session, she shares that one of the things that they do to develop the business is they do presentations. So they do information sessions. That is a perfect thing for you to design with your existing client base. So you invite them to an information session. And if you want to make it even more compelling for them to come, is couple yourself with another professional that would make sense for them. So for example, a money manager. You can do a session together with somebody who manages money, and you can make it where you're now talking about how to not only protect them their estate after they die, but how to help them generate the wealth that they want and need to leave at the time that they die. So those two go very well together. And if you couple yourself with a pro there, and you're bringing all your existing clients to the table, there's a lot of value there, where now that other person will bring their clients to the table, and now you're exposed to an even bigger audience. So I think that you can use the Charles Krugel coupled with Neil Tyra method to create the ALEXIS superpower here with doing that. So I think that would be a great idea for you to explore. As far as the marketing idea, I'm not a big fan of the personalized or like the calendars you send out. You know what people do with that, right?
I throw them away.
Exactly. I throw them away too. And I think that most people do. I think that itself is a waste of money. What I do think is that there are people who are in the business of creating these types of promotional items. And I think that you can be much more strategic about it by going to somebody who does that for a living and saying, here's my practice. This is what I do. Let's come up with something that will be unique, that will be exciting for somebody to get, or something useful for them to have. Even something as simple as a mouse pad is probably going to be more used than a calendar. So I really think that you should explore it a little bit further than a calendar.
Can I jump in here?
Sure.
I couldn't agree more. Swag is kind of, it's ego driven, in my humble opinion, by the attorney. You know what past clients would respond to a whole lot better? A handwritten note. So again, going back to mining that database, you want to send something out for the holiday season, send out a Christmas card with not, a stamped signature, but 3 or 4 sentences that actually reflect your personal relationship with that client. I sent out over 250 Christmas cards this year. It took me a long time to do them all, but you can repackage it, say, as a New Year's card if you can't get it out before the holidays. So do a New Year's card. Do something handwritten, something personal, something that actually forwards and pushes the personal relationship that you have with that existing client. And the other thing, to piggyback on what Moshe said about a joint event, you can do that. And we've framed that and called it a client appreciation day. So to our existing client base, to show you how much we appreciate your support and the fact that you entrusted us to do your divorce or your custody case, come listen to us talk about estate planning. We're going to have a financial planner there, a tax preparer, and we're going to have somebody to teach you how to do yoga. So it's something a little different. And past clients, they eat that up, and it's literally a very low cost, high impact reward for you.
Awesome.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah.
Yay! Just one more question. All your tips have been very, very helpful. Just to be a little more specific about my community, I come from a Romanian background, and there's a lot of elderly here in the community, and they're not necessarily email savvy or computer savvy, and that's why I was mentioning the calendars. Should I do something else for those folks? Instead of going up to them individually, should I make an announcement, a seminar? I know we spoke about seminars earlier where they just don't hear Diane and I think divorce attorney, but also, okay, she can help me with my estate planning needs. And this is like in the Romanian community, they don't even know the laws or that they do need to do something, a bunch of them own apartment buildings, homes, and I just want to kind of bring and shed the light. Hey, I'm here and I'm doing this and you need the service.
Yeah, I think that you might want to explore the same idea that you would use electronically in physically in the mail. So okay. In order to tell somebody, hey, I'm doing this, you might start sending emails with information specifically on that topic where they start opening it and reading it and they're like, oh, she's doing this now. And kind of just putting information out there and then educating your audience on the need in the process. So perhaps a physical newsletter that you start to send out once a month with an article very specifically, strategically targeted towards them. So if you know that most of them, their property is real estate, then it can be very specifically around real estate. And you can, the same idea of doing a event together, you can collaborate with other professionals to add to your newsletter. So you could basically go to a tax preparer and go to a financial advisor and say, oh, okay, look, I'm creating this newsletter. Once a month, it's going to go out to my clients. Would you like to partner with me? You contribute an article and we send it to your list as well. And then the three of us basically become this machine, this marketing machine to this market where, their market might be more electronic. So then you provided an email too. But I think that education is the key to letting somebody know, hey, I'm doing this. I'm an expert at it. And, oh, you need it too, because you just read this article and realized, oh, that's not being covered. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, I want to add that so snail mail and some direct mail kind of things, we've got clients that use it and I always question it and kind of go, okay, well, let's track it. We can track it, use special phone numbers, special URLs and stuff, and we see that it still works. It depends on the community, depends on your particular focus audience. It sounds like for yours that might work. Newsletters are great. I mean, we've got this one client who said they put a little recipe from somebody in the office every single month that they send them out, or I think it's quarterly for them. And they'll have people like a year later, reach out to them saying, hey, we lost that recipe that you had in your newsletter. Can you send it to us? Because it's been in our cookbook for, another one that sends out magnets of so they're in Alabama. And so if you know anything about Alabama, it's all about football, right? So it's Alabama and Auburn's football schedule. And they said magnets, and he'll get a call from people saying, hey, we haven't got our magnets yet, but he knows he's on the refrigerator with their firm name, right? So those things do work, and we've tracked them enough to see that they get clients from them. So it's, I'm not big on, if you haven't tracked it, haven't done it, I don't know if that seems like a lot of money, but in your market, I think the newsletter idea is not a bad idea. I really like Moshe's idea of pulling together things from a few places. There are a couple vendors that have some kind of canned stuff, and then you can mix your own stuff in. So it's going to your community, then it's not like it's on the web where people can see that it's copied stuff. And I'm blanking on the name of one that we've worked with in the past, but there are some those providers out there that work with law firms to help kind of take some information and put it together, but then you add your own mix to it that kind of saves something on some of the content play.
They didn't sponsor the summit. We're not going to mention them here.
And Diana, it sounds to me like you're sitting on a niche gold mine. I would really explore that Romanian connection and, go to Romanian cultural events, sponsor them, Everybody's always looking for advertising on their program. You can put a cheap ad in the program to bring awareness to your firm.
Awesome. You guys have been great. Thank you so much.
Oh, it's our pleasure, and we
Oshi,
really
good job on putting this together.
thank you, Dan. I appreciate it, and I appreciate you coming forward and asking the question. I mean, without these questions, this Q&A would be very boring.
Anyway, so I'm in a similar boat to Daniel. I'm in kind of a sweat equity budget, but I'm in family law. So it's a little bit different, obviously, than estate planning. Not everybody needs. So I'm in family law. So I know there's a lot of people out there that don't need a family law attorney, or at least if they do, it kind of comes up suddenly. So I was just looking for ideas on, as opposed to estate planning, which everybody theoretically needs kind of at any time. What are some ideas to get a message out there for family law attorneys that you can do on a sweat equity budget?
All right. Anybody want to volunteer to take this? If not, then I can start. But I don't want to. I'm kind of hosting this. Go ahead, Neil.
Yeah, I'll jump in here. Hey, Tad, how you doing?
I'm doing great, thanks.
So, when I first started, I started off. You see, if you haven't figured this out yet, I'm old, and so I've gone from career to career to career, and from practice area to practice area to practice area. So I think I've made all the mistakes that you can make in any one career. But anyway, when I first started, I started doing personal injury law, which is a different dynamic, a different paradigm altogether. And then I transitioned to predominantly family law. And I was a little bit in the same boat, sweat equity. I didn't have a lot of money to spend at the time. So the key for me was to really figure out who my clients were, who are my favorite clients. And one of the revelations I had was, after doing a few cases, and I'm assuming you've done a few, I recognized that the high net worth divorce was not something that I wanted to do. You could make a lot of money on that individual case, but people who are in that position usually got there because they were very mindful of every penny that they had along the way, and they fought over every little penny at the very end. And for me personally, that level of conflict was too high. So that helped me refine my target audience too. The people that I wanted to help in family law predominantly were victims of domestic violence, because that had a real appeal to me. Might to you as well, being a former prosecutor, you can relate to that. And so I went to where those people were. I started working, with shelters, and I started working with people who provide resources for domestic violence victims. And I started doing, some pro bono work through the Bar Association, specifically geared to that point. That got my foot in the door. And then, I started working with people who, look, they didn't have a lot of money, and they just wanted to get divorced, and they didn't know how to go about doing it, and they didn't want to do it pro bono. So I marketed myself as kind of, I'll hold your hand as you go through the divorce. It's not going to be as expensive as a full-blown litigation, because we're going to try to avoid litigation. And there's ways to structure your retainer agreement, particularly now if your jurisdiction allows limited representation, as we do here in Maryland, to take advantage of that. So you kind of just take those little steps, find out which is the client that you most like to work with in the family law arena, and then go where they are. Okay? Go find them, work with them, provide value to them. You'll get clients back.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. Anybody else want to chime in here for Tad?
Yeah, I give this stuff. I always tell people who come at it from I want to grow, but still in the hustle mode, not the spend dollars and on an agency mode, right? So everything Neil said, kind of like similar to if you want a little more detail on kind of thinking through some of that process, Guy's talk, I think, was Moshe, you and him went back and forth a lot about identifying your ideal client and trying to really paint a picture of that, so you can start thinking about, like the word Charles used earlier, like your brand, and you can start kind of honing that in now as you're getting going. And honestly, a lot when you're in the sweat equity mode, it's a lot of hustle, right? So like Neil said, he went to all the places where he knew his best potential client was. We had one client that figured out in family law that what they liked working with was executive women in a divorce situation, because they made so much money, they often weren't given, he felt weren't given as good of rights during some of the things. So he basically moved all his marketing toward kind of that area, and his website changed. All the imagery on his website changed to be more professional women, not a lot of the like tearing something apart and somebody at home kind of stuff. So like it adjusted what his website looked like, his content, his messaging, the stuff he wrote about, who he was writing to, right? So once he kind of heard a really good sense of like who his ideal client was, as Neil said, anything you write on your website, when you're writing some content and articles and stuff, you're writing to that person that's coming to read it. You're not writing to a whole audience, you're writing to like one person. And like that, really honing that in, again, I think Guy and Moshe had a great conversation back and forth on that talk today. So if you didn't get a chance to listen to it, that was very good. And like, so start there. The other thing I say is when you're out, and we talked about this earlier with, I think maybe the first person that came on, but so sound like a broken record here, but when you're out hustling, people are going to get to know your name, and they're going to look you up online. Just make sure you've got the basics covered. You got reviews, got your Google My Business, got some good images on there. In fact, Google My Business is essentially a free website, free second website. It's that good now, right? I mean, so make sure you got, like those bases covered if you're out there, in the sweat equity mode of, going out networking, handshaking, finding your audience. But Neil's point, we try to get our clients to understand that is like, what is the favorite, your favorite client to work with, and let's just go find more of them. That's a better way to practice law, right? You get to come in and work with people you want to work with every day. And that gives you energy, why you got into this. So like honing in on that helps a lot of the other messaging. It actually makes it a little bit easier to kind of stay up late at night and maybe write an article that's going to help you reach that person, because that's what it takes to do sweat equity, like SEO and sweat equity, like branding work. You're going to be doing a lot of it on your own. But grab our book. I mean, I think first half of the book will cover all the stuff you can do pretty much for free too.
Very cool. Is that something that like speaking can help that out in, like in a criminal law or in a family law context? Does speaking help that stuff, or is that more estate planning type stuff?
I'm gonna let Neil take that.
Yeah, for sure. You can use speaking opportunities. Probably not. You don't want to put it like a seminar at the local library on how to get divorced, because people aren't going to come to that, because frankly there's still kind of a stigma, or people don't want their business out in the street, but if you wanted to kind of do something along the lines of how to determine what your child support obligation is, talk about how the whole background of how the child support obligation is calculated and what things go into it and why things aren't in it. That would be a good one. Or if you wanted to talk about how the law behind property distribution, marital property distribution in your jurisdiction, those are kind of technical areas that give you a meaty topic to talk about. And you can put that into a presentation, serve coffee and donuts. You'll market it in a mom's group or a dad's group. That's another thing you might want to focus on. And those are clear winners.
Are there clear partners for family law? I think estate planning might have a financial advisor. Does family law have the same tie-ins, or is that more standalone?
Sure. I mean, family law, you have centers of influence, as we like to call them. So again, they're very similar in terms of who they are. Financial planners, they get word, or they know of people who are going to need family law services. Um, uh, Frankly, religious advocates, the churches. People know that there's a level of confidentiality, but what you want to do is market to them to say that these are the resources I offer. If anybody in your group, your congregation needs them, I'm here. You can certainly advertise with them. The other one is schools. Every single elementary, middle school, high school, they all have um, uh, handbooks and things that go out on the Wednesday, backpacks and stuff like that. I would really urge you to get your information in those. And again, you have to do it in a way that brings value to the recipient. So, I don't want to open my kid's backpack and find a brochure, for the divorce attorney. But if I can do something that provides value, and oh, by the way, this is brought to you by the Family Law Center of wherever you are, then you get the same effect. People will then relate to you because you brought value to them in some way through their kids or through their school. Sports programs are always looking for sponsors. Sponsor the wrestling team, my favorite, or the soccer team. And that gets your names in front of families, and families are the ones who need family law.
Right. And Ted, I want to jump in here and add to it that what you need to do is put your marketing hat on, okay, and think about the client journey. So think about what are they doing before they get to the point that they are ready to get divorced. These are two people who loved each other at some point, and then something happens where that unravels, and they get to the point where they are going to get divorced. It doesn't happen overnight. It's not like, oh, yesterday I was happily married, today I want a divorce. There's a journey that happens in between those 2 points, and if you can hop on the train and be in that journey somewhere, that's how you're going to win at this game. So finding people when they're actively looking to get divorced is very difficult. In the same vein, I'll give an example. Somebody who is a cardiologist, finding somebody when they're having the heart attack, I mean, that's easy because they go to the hospital. Now they need a cardiologist, right? So, but then they're relying on the hospital to refer them specifically to their practice, right? So how does a cardiologist get out there in front of people? They talk about promoting heart health. They talk about being healthy. They give talks on what to do to prevent a heart problem. Now, by doing that in the public, in the public forum constantly, now they're known as the cardiologist who's looking out for your own good. When somebody needs a cardiologist, that's who they're going to look for. You're the same thing. If you go and you do talks on promoting a healthy marriage, on fixing problems before you get to divorce, do everything publicly that shows that you don't want somebody to get divorced, you want to help them stay together, that's going to put you out in the public as the go-to person to deal with that divorce when it happens. So go back a few steps in the client journey and enter there and be there. That's where you have the ability to put on a public face and have people show up. To Neil's point, they're not going to show up to a seminar about how to get divorced, but they will show up to something that is how to promote a healthy marriage that they could display publicly they're interested in, and they could bring their spouse. So it's not about how to get divorced. It's how do we keep this train going? How do we get back on track? And to the centers of influence point, therapists are a great place for you to associate and also collaborate. So you can do sessions together with a therapist. It's not your promoting the healthy marriage might not be your key target area, but just like here, I have put the summit together. By bringing all these people together, I am instantly an authoritative figure to the 2,000 plus people that are here. Right before that, I had a podcast or whatever it is, but I was known to a smaller circle of people. Now I'm known to a larger audience, and I'm known in a way that just put me up there just because I created the event. So you don't even have to be the one standing up there speaking. By just creating it and promoting it, you automatically have that association of being interested in the well-being of your target client.
Awesome.
Just let me add to that. So Moshe, I probably should have mentioned this earlier when somebody had some similar questions about, I'm still trying to hustle in or sweat equity and stuff. I kind of describe it, there's like two types of customer journey. And I had a really interesting conversation with Marshall Lichty, who also, with Stephanie Everett's on this week, right? She was on.
Yeah, she's on day 5.
Okay, yeah. So she, like, they with lawyers co-wrote the Small Firm Playbook. So we had a conversation, and there you go, Small Firm Roadmap. That's it. Yeah. Great book, by the way. Highly recommend it. But it's I kind of like look at this customer journey as there's I don't know if I can curse, so I'll say instead of oh crap law. Okay, so you have oh crap, and then you have what if, right? So the oh crap like stuff, right? So like, oh no, something happened and I need to deal with it right now. Like you said, like, like I got in a car accident, I got a DUI, I caught my wife cheating on me, and now I'm, like that is, I'm going to the search right now and looking for very specific terms. Those are super competitive. That's those really expensive PPC keywords you hear about, the really hard searches. On the what if side, it's the, like I'm not really sure, I'm not really happy. What is that customer journey? That kind of gets to the point you were talking about, like what is it somebody's thinking in whether it's family law or any particular practice area, like what are all the what ifs that somebody has slowly along the way that you could provide some content, because there's not a lot of people competing for that stuff, because it's usually not the hot client right now. It's a person who's going to slowly build over time, or even maybe just build your name and get some referrals off of it. But that, thinking about that, I always, look at it as like the what if journey is the better journey to go after, customer journey. If you're trying to do a lot of stuff on your own, if you're solo, trying to write your own content, or trying to really think about, where to speak, who to talk to, those customer journeys are going to be less competitive with all the dollars being thrown at it by the people just saying, I want when somebody types divorce attorney in New York, right? I mean, like, you're not going to win on that easily, but you can win on all these other questions, like how much is alimony, in my state, right? Like just, like somebody's going to type that in if they're kind of thinking about like, well, what's this going to cost if I do this, if I even start going down the path? So you can think about all those what if questions. That's a good way to start thinking about, like, from a content perspective, search engine optimization perspective on low competitive terms. So around the customer journey, remind me of that.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right, Tad, any other questions? Charles, you want to chime in with anything?
No, I got nothing at this time. Thanks.
Tad, you good?
I'm good. Thank you.
Diana asked, how important is a logo and attorney headshot on a website? Just trying to figure out what to spend money on. In summary, what basic elements are important to a professional and effective website or marketing material? Neil responded and said, both critically important. People want to see what you look like and remember your logo, and even cheap video off your phone loaded onto your website will pay huge dividends. I'm just going to add that you can get really strategic with doing that on a really tight budget. I recently had my 40th birthday. My wife surprised me with an awesome birthday party. It was a complete surprise. And she found a brand new photographer, or maybe she was still a student, who was happy to do the entire birthday for like $60. So you can find somebody who's just starting out. They might not be the best headshots ever, but they'll be far better than anything you can do yourself. And that's a way to get something on a budget. Same thing with a logo. You can go on Fiverr, or go on what are some of the other sites? There's
Upwork, Fiverr, 99 Designs. Yeah.
Right. 99 Designs, where, so they're each different. So Fiverr, you can select who you're going to go with. You tell them what you want. They come back with it and you're done. 99 Designs, you basically go and say, hey, I'm looking for a logo. This is my idea. And then a bunch of designers actually create it, and you choose the winner. So you get a ton of, you get a bunch of different designers there, to do it for you. Now, at the other end of the spectrum, for the summit, this was a quality event that I was trying to put out. And I went to a professional branding guy, and and he normally charges $4,000 to do a full branding of your company. And he gave me a price of under $1,000 to do, because all I needed was the logo and the colors. I didn't need the rest of his branding toolkit. And I mean, it came out amazing. I mean, look at this background behind me. It's virtual, by the way. It's overlaid behind me. And it just gives a certain level of professionalism to have something, really that thought out and well put together. So I think that there's different ends of the spectrum as far as what you do, and start with something economical if you're on a budget, and then you can always change it later.
Yeah, and I love data and tracking. So we have done enough tests to show that if your picture is on your homepage, it converts better. If you have video on your homepage, it converts better. So those, at a minimum, have your picture. People want to see who they're, especially in an area of like a lot of concern and need and scared. People are scared. They want to see who they're getting ready to pick up the phone and call. If you can put that right on your homepage, if you take pictures around your office and of you and stuff like that, and get rid of all the stock photos on your website, I'd always recommend that. Having it as personal as possible is going to just help your brand long term. If you have like these fancy stock photos on your website of like some, what you think the perfect law office is, and then somebody comes into your office and it doesn't look the same, there's like kind of a bait and switch going on. So I think just have people know what they're getting into it, and that way you'll be attracting the right type of people who are going to be your best clients. But definitely logo and is important. I think you can get away with it, like you said, Moshe, and do something quickly. Always update it later. Start thinking about your brand from who do you want to target, and who, what makes you different, and what's your uniqueness versus all the other law firms on the same street is probably more important in terms of branding. The logo is just something you can do quickly, get it up there, but have nice headshots. And you're right, like we'll send, like you can go on Google, and even I think they have on the Google My Business section, they have this thing you can find local photographers who even do some of that 360 photography for next to nothing more too. So there's a lot of ways to get some good photographers.
And Mark, since you just mentioned Google My Business, we have a question from Gwen that I think is a really easy just answer that you can provide. For Google My Business, should I use the same name as my website or just use my individual name? I started filling it out and got confused.
Okay. I'd recommend using the name of your firm, whatever like the official firm name is, because that's also going to show up in a lot of other places online. Because you had to register it. Is it just the firm name, or is it just your name on the State Bar website? Is it in the phone, the Chamber of Commerce, like wherever you're listing your name, be consistent as possible and make Google My Business the same thing.
All right, so go ahead with your question.
Hey guys, thanks. When you were talking about mining of additional services, you were talking to someone earlier about crossing from one type of law to another. My question is staying within the same type. I'm intellectual property and business, and we already have flows, Facebook ads, content outline. We do a business audit when they first come in. So we kind of walk them down the path and they're primed the whole time. But is there anything else that I could be missing so that when we finished one matter, one piece of that puzzle for them to go to the next, that they're ready to go?
Well, I would ask them. What is it that you need? There's a really interesting book along those lines. I'm looking at my bookshelf. I can't quite see it all the way over there at the moment. But basically, it talks about the power of asking your clients and doing surveys and just continuing to mine that database for information that you can then use to shape whatever offering you may have further. Now, you may already have those offerings and services available, and you're just connecting the need to the asset that you can provide, but you may learn something completely completely new that you hadn't counted on, and so that's really an important tool. A survey or questionnaire, and now again with online resources, SurveyMonkey, and the other things that people use, you can be very sophisticated with those survey reviews.
Cool.
So I think so if you have, so that's like great, because it's like I think when you survey people, what Neil was saying, you're going to find a whole bunch of things maybe you didn't even think about as the next step. If you have some next steps, or you have some examples of clients that are good, kind of like the poster children for somebody who keeps going through the process with you, having those as examples and case studies, and talking about things like, our best clients who have the most success, here's how they work with us. We actually use that when we're talking to people. It's like, well, our best clients tend to like start here, and then they take a little bit of the winnings off the table, and they invest a little bit more and a little bit more. So as you're going through the process, you're not shocked on day one, but know that when you get to a next set of like for IP, right? So when you get to the next point and maybe have a little more funding or a little more money, here's the next step you will do when you're working with us. And then you get to the ready for production and stuff. Here's the next step you would do with us. So kind of mapping that journey that they would take with you over time, right from like the beginning, and say like, here's what this long-term process looks like. But the first project's only this, right? That's a way to kind of like set up the future sale.
Yeah, and the book that I was talking about is called Ask.
Ask.
By Ryan Levesque, and just a brilliant book. I've heard him speak twice in person, and it's exactly this kind of thing where you go in and the use of surveys and questionnaires and the like to find out what it is that your clients might be interested in doing going forward. It's just nothing short of brilliant.
Yeah, and I'm going to jump in here and give a couple of cents. Some call it 2 cents, right? The first is, I had a guest on my podcast. He's a gentleman who's also speaking on day 5, Christopher Anderson. Christopher Anderson has been in the legal industry for a long time. He was associated with How to Manage a Small Law Firm with R. John Robbins. He has now started a company that is kind of partnered with Arjan and with Mike McAllowitz from Profit First, called Profit First for Lawyers. And that my podcast episode 41 on the Profit with Law podcast, is an interview I did with him. It's called Profit First as a Practice Area with Christopher Anderson. And he talks about how easy it is to add that in to a practice, especially when you're working in a relationship with business owners. And it's a very natural transition. Somebody is looking to protect their assets because there's something to protect, which means that there's money there, and they might not be getting the results that they want. And as adding Profit First into the practice area, the way it works is you bring in a Profit First professional, a Profit First bookkeeper, and you're just kind of the center of it all, making sure that that's happening. And that keeps you in touch with their business on a recurring basis, so that you always know what's going on. And then you always you're alerted to the additional opportunities because you got your hands in their business the entire time. So I urge you to listen to that episode and also his session on day 5 to start to evaluate whether that makes sense for your firm. The other thing is, Stephanie Everett, in her talk on day 5, talks about, and Rachel, did you get the All Access Pass?
I have to check.
Okay. If you did, you already have access to this. So you can go to day 5 and watch it. You don't have to wait till Friday. Stephanie talks about other business models for your firm outside of hourly billing. And you're already, I'm sure, with IP doing flat fee pricing for what you're doing. But another idea that she puts out there is a subscription model where
we have that,
where they're paying you monthly to either have access to you on a Q&A or to do these constant checks to make sure they're always completely protected, things like that. So you might want to start thinking about these alternative business models where you can start to have recurring revenue from every single one of your clients, and where you're not doing a lot of work for it, but they feel like they've got you on their team the entire time. And any of these that allow you to have them keep coming to the table for conversations allows you to keep a pulse on what's going on in their business, to be on alert for other opportunities within your practice area.
Cool.
Charles, anything to add?
No, no thanks.
Okay. Rachel, any other questions for us?
No, that's great. Got my wheels turning. Thanks, guys.
Have you been enjoying the show? We sure hope so. To make sure you never miss an episode, be sure to hit the subscribe button in your podcast player app. Next week, we will be back with more valuable resources and ideas on how to break the mold and take your law firm to the next level.